So, y'all, I'm so excited to have the opportunity to speak about Grace Battle. I think everybody knows her. You may know her as the baddest bishop, because she was our most recent baddest bishop. You might know her as that girl who scored 100 lax goals last week. Or maybe that girl that's been going to play college lax since the beginning of the year. We all knew it. She signed early. Maybe that girl who hustled hard on the basketball court or volleyball court. Or maybe she was your counselor on Perkins this year. Maybe you have her in class and she's that girl who's really good at school but also talks too much, but the teachers can't get too mad at her because she's also a really good student. Or maybe you just know her as a friend. However it is, you're privileged to get to know her. I've actually known Grace for a really long time. I have had a long time to think about this, and there was just so much I wanted to say, it was hard to condense it. So she was my boss's daughter, Mr. Battle, who's here. His wife was one of the first people that I met on campus, and they have been a little bit like family to us since we've moved here. And I think I automatically connected with Grace because I also grew up on a boarding school campus with my dad is also head of school, so I knew what that could be like, both the joys and the drawbacks. When Grace was younger, and I guess she babysat my kids a lot, and we really connected over our weird obsession with Sophia the First. My kids would be like long past it, and Grace and I would be like, but we want to know what's going to happen. Like we'd be in the room watching it without the girls. I don't know why, but my youngest daughter, Caroline, has called her Mr. Grace for our first 3 years living here. And then my other daughter, Charlotte, has always looked up to Grace and has tried to follow in her footsteps in many ways. And honestly, I couldn't ask for a better role model. I'm thrilled that she picked Grace. I don't want these to just be about my memories with Grace, so I asked some of her friends to share some of their favorite memories of hers. So Lily Much, who's known Grace since they were like tiny, said her favorite memory with Grace is when they would watch Camp Rock every weekend in middle school. Sally Fonville said, I really enjoyed rooming with Grace for 3 years. There's nobody else who was as dedicated to putting my socks on every morning during my ACL recovery, which definitely shows Grace's kind-hearted character and willingness to take on anything. Annie Mitchell said, I would say my favorite memories with Grace were the times that we all randomly started breaking out at song at advisory lunch, just having Grace start a random song and then everyone joining in, which happens a lot, oftentimes during announcements, not ideal. Hannah Say said, some of my favorite memories with Grace are the little things, whether it was just sitting on the floor of her room chatting, pre-basketball game hype-up bus rides, study halls when she was on duty in McCormick, advisories, dinners, and lunches, and her just being one of the best role models and influential people during my time at BS. Oh, and her being one of the silliest girls ever. Sasha Brody said, my favorite memory of Grace is her making her first three-pointer against Trinity and running down the court screaming with her hands in the air. She later told me that was one of the best moments of her life. Kate Flippin said, my favorite memory is Grace on Tuesdays when she's on duty. She always comes in and sits on our floor and asks for food and tells us all about her life and always stays for a long time, then realizes she's supposed to be doing rounds. Lucy Stark said, one of my favorite Grace memories was lying on the floor in our room about a week into living on Perkins, and we were a little overwhelmed, so we ordered cookies. We sat on the floor and ate cookies, plus laughed until our stomachs hurt. She always knows how to make a stressful situation less stressful and brighten not only my day, but all those who surround her. Many of my favorite memories of Grace also take place around food, whether it is advisory lunches on Tuesdays, meals at our home or at the Ainsley home, eating outside freshman year with the bees flying around. Those of you who remember those meals. Grace eating all of my candy during Spanish class. Also, one of my earliest memories is Grace and Sophie Chutlish were actually over at my house helping all the little campus kids bake on a snow day when none of them had school. There was when we first moved here, I felt like it snowed all the time and our kids never went to school. So Grace and Sophie helped us out. Grace and Sophie helped us bake cookies. And that's the first time I realized Grace was dairy-free. It was also the first time I realized that Grace didn't care that she was dairy-free. And when it comes to cookies, she will definitely eat, baked goods, she'll definitely eat dairy no matter what. So I decided to make the theme of my kind of introduction for Grace to be baking, because as Julia Child said, a party without a cake is just a meeting. And I would argue that a chapel without Grace is, well, just a chapel. So Grace is our cake to our chapel. Gail Simmons once said there's no better way to bring people together than with desserts, and I like to think that Grace is often the cake that brings our advisory group or Spanish class or whatever together. So I also asked some of Grace's friends, coaches, and teammates to tell me if Grace was a dessert, what dessert would she be? Francis Fenton said, Grace is like creme brulee, because on the lacrosse field she is tough on the outside, but once you get to know her as a person, she is sweet, warm-hearted, and beyond likable. Elle Langley said, Grace would be Laffy Taffy. She is tough on the outside, making her a very strong and confident girl, both on the field and in the classroom. But she is quickly recognized as sweet and loved by all. She's also super funny and always has a joke ready. Coach Hooper said, Grace would be a dessert that looks dairy-free, but actually isn't, because of, you guys get it. Or maybe a key lime pie, because when you bite into key lime pie, first you get a punch in the face, and then it is sweet. I just love that so many people talked about how Grace is such a great combination of tough and sweet and funny. I admire this about her too. I was trying to figure out what dessert best described her in my mind, and so I decided to go with Bananas Foster because it's a classic, it's fancy, it's unassuming, but when it catches on fire, everybody in the room turns to watch it and can't take their eyes off of it. Grace, you fight for what you believe in. You don't wait for change to happen. You do what it takes to make the change. And all analogies aside, you have grown into an amazing young woman during your time here and before, and I could not be more proud of the student, athlete, friend, and leader you have become. I believe that you possess the qualities to do great things with your life, continue to work hard for the things you want in life, face challenges head on, and continue to take time to share a cookie or cupcake with your friends and family. And this is for you to share a cake with your friends today at lunch to celebrate your counselor talk. And lastly, come back and visit VES because you make our lives a little bit sweeter.
Thank you, Ms. Rim, for your kind words, and you and Ms. Ainsley for being the best advisors. I just want to say shout out to the Rim Advisory because we would beat anyone in a race. I'd like to kick things off with a few questions to test your knowledge of some important VES traditions. So tell me, are you guys allowed to walk under the bell tower?
No.
And what would happen if you did? I've lived on the VES campus for more than 5,000 years, and 5,000 days, I'm so sorry. Sorry. Well, still, 5,000 days is still a long time. And I've religiously avoided walking under the bell tower for more than 5,000 days. My earliest memory of VES is the bell tower. My parents had hired a student to babysit my siblings and I while they finished moving in. We walked all over campus, but the one place that stood out to me the most was the bell tower. Can you all picture it now? The tarnished bells suspended between the curved brick columns, now leading to the theater or jet, but at the time, it stood in front of King Gymnasium in Mingy Cottage. Holly, the student babysitting us, explained the tradition associated with the bell tower, and I was captivated. At 4 years old, it seemed gigantic and daunting, but something that made me excited for the day that I would walk underneath it and outlive its curse. I moved to VES with my family when I was 4 years old. Growing up here was a unique experience for me. My dad was the head of school for a decade, but my freshman year was Mr. Ainsley's first year. Unlike my two older siblings, I wasn't immediately labeled as a faculty kid or the headmaster's daughters by my new friends. Yet that was always a big part of me. For those of you who have put up with my drama for the past 4 years, I'd like to offer somewhat of an explanation. Is it nature or nurture? I'm sure both play a part. But I know for a fact that 10 years of family dinners in the dining hall, having to yell over everyone to be heard, probably played a role. And maybe knowing too much about how this school is run makes me a bit of a smartass at times. And then there's the undeniable effect of being the cute little kid who is always around. From throwing on my cheerleading uniform and holding my dad's hand on the sideline at Saturday football games, to being lifted onto the tallest student's shoulders when I was 5. Those moments are core memories. Mary Claire, Elle, Livy, and Luli will remember my birthday parties weren't complete without a student choreographing dances for us or leading us in Justin Bieber karaoke. I was always interacting with students and teachers as the little faculty kid. In 7th grade, when the Rims trusted me to babysit Caroline for the first time, I noticed a shift. I was finally turning the corner to being the babysitter and not the babysat. Even though Caroline affectionately called me Mr. Grace, it marked a big step in my journey. But even as a freshman, signing in for breakfast and getting my temperature checked at the table, Mr. Yurk would joke, I've never seen you before, or I have absolutely no clue what your name is. Growing up on campus will always be a part of who I am. VES has been my home for a long time, since I was the little 4-year-old baby who knew nothing other than the big playground that was the VES campus. When we all reunite in 5 years, there will undoubtedly be a sense of nostalgia. We will be expecting everything to be just as we left it. Many of the faculty still see me as that little girl, and alumni are often surprised that I'm no longer 8 years old with a closet full of princess and cheerleader costumes. I've attended 13 graduations in my life. I've seen many students triumphantly walk under the bell tower with a cigar hanging out of their mouth to signify the end of their journey as a VES student. Crazy enough, the 14th graduation that I will attend will be my own. As that day approaches, I find myself reflecting on the past 14 years, and over the past few weeks, I've felt overwhelmed by the task of capturing it all in a short speech. But as sad as it is that our journey at VES is coming to a close, isn't it exciting to start at a new place and make a new first impression? So my advice that I'm supposed to throw into this speech is to all of you, but especially to my fellow seniors. Be sad that it's coming to an end. Let's embrace these last few weeks, but think about how exciting and new and scary this new adventure will be. Let's embrace that and lean into the nerves, because we are not alone in our feelings. From navigating freshman year's COVID protocols together and leaning on each other for support, I hope you all know that doesn't end when we leave on May 25th, but our bond extends beyond this campus. As I prepare to leave, I know many still see me as that wide-eyed child, but change is inevitable, and it's something to be embraced. Just like beating the bell tower's curse, graduation marks a new beginning, one that promises growth, challenges, and new opportunities. In closing, I want to thank everyone who has made VES feel like a home. Lucy for keeping me sane on Perkins, my mom and dad for always being there for me, and Lilia for being my best friend. I've been so lucky to have you at VES these past 3 years, and I do not know what I'm going to do without you being 200 feet away next year. Seniors, you have 40 days until graduation. Let's finish strong.